Hey guys, Mystic Fairy King here. Don't mind the hair or the glare on my glasses, but today we're going to be diving into another review in the discography of Lady Gaga, which and this will be her third album, Born This Way, which was released on May 23rd of 2011, for me that would have been my either junior or senior year in high school. Now we're gonna start off with "Marry the Night." Now, "Marry the Night" is a song about her partying with her friends, but it's also but it kind of also has like a darker, like a more personal, deep meaning to it, which is kind of like when she says she's going to marry the night. What she's saying also is that she's marrying her insecurities, and just kind of, and as she basically goes out into the world and and presents herself, which which I think that's really cool. And I think a lot of us can learn a little bit from that. And with that, we're going to move on to "Born This Way," which is the title song of the album, and for very good reason, because it's really about self liberation and being comfortable with and basically accepting and being comfortable with who you are, no matter what your race is, no matter your gender or your sexuality even. And it's very powerful. It's very inspiring. But now we're going to move on to Government Hooker. It references the alleged relationship between one of our former presidents, JFK, and Marilyn Monroe. But it also kind of tackles the themes of the female sexual empowerment, which I can definitely hear as I listen to it. But we are going to move on to Judas now. Judas, from what I've heard, is listened to when I've listened to this whole album, is the first track on this album out of 7 tracks that on this album that in itself that has kind of like a biblical references and themes, which I kind of find to be very cool, because Judas in itself is about the song. Like, looking at the lyrics, it's basically about a woman who is in love with a man who has betrayed her. But it's also about embracing one's darkness to kind of bring oneself into like the light, or basically kind of like bringing your best self out of that darkness that's inside of us. Now we are going to move on. Americano is a song that takes references, that kind of takes reference well, not references. Americano is a song that was influenced. Basically, Lady Gaga wrote this song in because she was influenced by the events that were going on around that time, which was the California Proposal 8, which was like basically tackled like what marriage is, and like basically like, oh, marriage is going to be like between a man and a woman, and not anything more than that. And that's what it was going to do, was basically like finite that wall. And Lady Gaga wrote this song in response to it. And not only that, the song also tackles the struggles of of the Mexican immigrants around that time, because there was a lot of controversy with Mexican immigrants crossing the border illegally. So we're going to move on to Hair. She's basically telling a story of like her teenage self, like back when she was growing up with her family back in New York, and how her parents would kind of force her to dress a certain way, and kind of like trying to put her into a box of sorts, which a lot of people can relate to, with especially with parents nowadays. But also within that moment, as she's telling it, the only way that she could find to express herself in was through her hair, actually, which I thought was a very cool thing. And it's as she's kind of like referencing her hair, and it's basically like, I'm my own person, and I should be who I want to be, which is kind of like a song of like self liberation, which is a really strong message for me. We're gonna move on to the next track in the album, Shiza. Now, now, is about kind of wanting to be that. She wrote this song basically wanting to express her feelings about kind of wanting to be bad without permission. Now, and when I say bad, I mean like, you know, being strong, like being like a bad bitch. Where the title of the song comes in is that when she would try to express this, there would be people in you know that would interact with her, that would tell her that it's like, no, it's like no, you can't be a strong woman. She would essentially, like, as she was hearing these people just kind of like taught, like, basically to just telling her, just trying to put her into a box. It's like, no, you can't be a strong woman at all. She was just kind of like hearing it, and I'm just like, like gibberish. The beginning of the song, where it sounds like she's legitimately speaking German, she's not. It's actually gibberish. It's actually gibberish that sounds like German, which is really cool to me. Now we're gonna move on to the next track, which is Bloody Mary. Now Bloody Mary is is another song that takes biblical references, and one in particular that Lady Gaga found, like, she basically kind of in worshipped her as in her childhood, which was Mary Magdalene. But basically, but in this song, she's kind of like taking that role of of Mary, and she's kind of like in the lyrics. It's kind of like Mary. It's kind of like throughout the song. It's like Mary talking to Jesus Christ herself, as she is conveying that, I won't cry for you. I won't crucify the things you do. I thought that was really cool, because it, at the same time as it has that really kind of like biblical meaning, it's also taking reference to like an urban legend folklore of like Bloody Mary, which I think is really cool, especially with the added bits of like, she goes into like this creepy vibe, the creepy demonic vibe throughout the song, and it really, really sends the message across. Now we're going to move on to Black Jesus Black Jesus, Amen fashion. Now this song is about when Lady Gaga, when she just moved out on her own. She moved to the downtown scene of like New York City, where that's where she, being on her own, started to see the world in a different view, as opposed to being able to actually experience this for herself. Changes her whole perspective of on the world. That's kind of like basically how where the black Jesus comes in, where it's like she's no longer just seeing Jesus, she's seeing a whole new perspective of it. It's like Black Jesus, and I think that's really cool. We're going to move on to another song and that is Bad Kids. Now, Bad Kids is kind of like Lady Gaga is basically telling me that you know, even though you're not how your parents wanted you to turn out and whatnot, you are still accepted how you are, and that's kind of and that's what I really love about the song, is that it really kind of holds that deep relatable that deep relatable feeling of it. She drew inspiration for this song from the stories that she would hear from her fans while she was still doing the Monster Ball tour. And that's what I really love about her, is that she really loves her fan base. Now we are going to move on to the next track, Fashion of His Love. Now, I love it. Now, I do really like this track. It really shows how much certain people really impacted her in her life. Like, this song in itself is a tribute to the late Alexander McQueen, which was a very iconic fashion designer in the fashion industry. And even though you know with their very brief relationship, before he passed, it definitely shows how much of a deep connection they had, especially see, like, with how she makes it sound in lyrics, and it really shows. Now we're going to move on to Highway Unicorn. Now this song is about her traveling on the road with nothing but a dream, but it also refers to the still ever ongoing fight for equality. Now we're gonna actually move on to Heavy Metal Lover. Now this song is actually the last song that she recorded for this album. She referred to the Monster Ball tour as an electric chapel, which is where the title of the song kind of comes from. Now we're gonna move on to the next track, which is The Queen. Now this song is about the bravery and wanting to be unafraid and not having to hide. When which is and surprise and I thought it was really cool that this song is also Lady Gaga also wrote this song about her gay friends, like, and that's really cool. And that's really cool to me. Now we're gonna move on to You and I. I really like the different sound, because it really just kind of makes you really feel immersed within it, and you can really feel the story. Lady Gaga is talking about the relationship that she had back in 2008 or 2000, like 2007 2008, with Luke Carl, which he was a manager of a nightclub, I guess, like a few other things he was, but he lived in New York. The song is basically about her attempting to retrieve her this lost love that she had while she was on break from her Monster Ball tour, which I thought was really cool. And another cool fact in the song, when she refers to Nebraska, she's actually referring to him because that's where he grew up before he moved to New York, which I thought that was a really cool fact and a cool reference to make. The last track of this album, which is The Edge of Glory, I think is a really deep, meaningful song because this song is very deep in the fact that it is about those last moments on that you have on earth. You know, the moment of truth, before you leave earth and pass on. She was inspired by her grandfather had passed, which was a really sad and impactful moment in her life. As she was taking shots with her father at the piano while they were at home and celebrating his life. And it's a really meaningful song. I hope you guys enjoyed this album review, and I will see you guys later.